The security camera caught it at 3:47 a.m. Vanessa Reed, California's youngest tech CEO, worth $1.2 billion, collapsed on her penthouse bathroom floor, pills scattered around her shaking body. The woman Forbes called unstoppable couldn't stand up without gripping the sink. Her hands wouldn't stop trembling. She hadn't slept in 4 days. The board meeting was in 5 hours, and she needed to look perfect again. But this time, the mask was cracking, and the only person who would see what happened next was a night shift janitor who wasn't supposed to be there at all. If you want to know how a powerful CEO's secret almost destroyed her, stay until the end. Hit like and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. Lucas Hayes pushed his cleaning cart through the glass doors of the Pinnacle Tower at exactly midnight. Thursday. Same route he'd worked for 8 months. 32nd floor. Executive suites. The kind of offices where people made more money in a day than he'd see in 5 years. He didn't care about any of that. What he cared about was getting home before his son woke up at 6. What he cared about was making sure the rent got paid. What he cared about was not screwing up this job the way he'd screwed up the last 3. The elevator hummed. His reflection stared back at him from the polished steel doors, tired eyes, work boots that needed replacing, the kind of face that blended into backgrounds. 32 years old and invisible. That was fine. Invisible meant employed. The doors opened on the executive floor, silent, dark except for the emergency lighting along the baseboards. Most nights it was like this. Empty. Lucas had the whole floor to himself until the early morning crew showed up around 5. He started with the conference rooms. Vacuumed the carpets. Wiped down the massive table that probably cost more than his car. Emptied trash bins full of catered lunch remnants, half-eaten sushi, expensive coffee cups, printed presentations nobody bothered to recycle. Rich people wasted everything. By 1:15, he'd finished the communal areas and moved toward the private offices. Most were locked. He had keys for the ones that weren't. Standard cleaning. 10 minutes per office. Vacuum. Dust. Trash. Wipe surfaces. Move on. Then he reached the corner office at the end of the hall. The nameplate read, Vanessa Reed, CEO. Lucas had cleaned this office maybe 20 times. He'd seen her exactly twice. Once when she walked past him in the lobby without looking up from her phone. Once when she left a meeting while he was emptying a trash can nearby. She hadn't noticed him either time. That was normal. People like her didn't see people like him. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. The office was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A desk that looked like modern art. Chairs that probably cost what he made in a month. Everything white and chrome and perfect. Except for the garbage. Lucas stopped. The trash can beside her desk was overflowing, not with normal office waste. With energy drink cans. Empty pill bottles. Crumpled papers. A broken coffee mug. Food containers that hadn't been thrown away properly. He walked closer. 3 empty prescription bottles lay among the mess. He picked one up without thinking. Adderall, prescribed 3 months ago. 90 pills. Refilled twice since then. The other bottles were the same. Different names. Same pattern. Lucas set the bottle down carefully. None of his business. He emptied the trash, vacuumed the floor, wiped down the desk. Tried not to think about what he'd seen. Tried not to compare it to the bottles he'd found hidden in his wife's purse 2 years before she died. Not the same thing. Completely different. He finished the office in 12 minutes and moved on. Friday night, same routine, same floor, same silence. Lucas reached Vanessa Reed's office at 1:30. This time, when he unlocked the door, the lights were on. She was sitting at her desk, facing the window, completely still. Lucas froze in the doorway. "Sorry, I didn't know anyone was here. I can come back." "It's fine." Her voice sounded hollow, flat. She didn't turn around. "Do whatever you need to do." Lucas hesitated. He should leave. Come back later. That's what the training manual said. But something about the way she sat there, shoulders rigid, head tilted slightly down, made him stay. He pushed the cart inside, kept his movements quiet, started emptying the smaller trash cans near the door. The silence felt wrong. After a few minutes, he glanced at her reflection in the window. She still hadn't moved. Her hands were gripping the armrests of her chair, gripping them hard enough that her knuckles looked white even in the dim reflection. Lucas cleared his throat. "You working late?" Something like that. Her voice was tight, controlled. The kind of control that came from holding everything in until it shattered. He'd heard that tone before, in hospital waiting rooms. In grief counseling sessions he'd stopped attending because they didn't help. He moved to the trash can beside her desk, the one that was overflowing again. More pill bottles, more energy drinks, a half-empty bottle of expensive vodka shoved under crumpled papers. Lucas picked up the trash bag slowly, tied it, set it aside. "You okay?" he asked quietly. "I'm fine." "You don't look fine." That made her turn around. Vanessa Reed looked nothing like her magazine covers. No perfect makeup, no confident smile. Her eyes were red-rimmed and exhausted. Her expensive blouse was wrinkled. Her hair was pulled back in a messy knot that didn't match the polished image he'd seen in the lobby. She stared at him. "Excuse me?" Lucas should have backed down, apologized, left. Instead he said, "I've seen people who are fine. You're not one of them." Her expression hardened. "You don't know anything about me." "No, I don't." He picked up the vodka bottle from the trash, held it up. "But I know what this means." Vanessa's jaw tightened. "That's none of your business." "You're right, it's not." Lucas set the bottle down on her desk, gently. "But I had a wife who used to hide bottles like this. Told me she was fine too, right up until she wasn't." The anger in Vanessa's face flickered, just for a second. Then it came back stronger. "Get out, okay?" Lucas grabbed his cart and walked toward the door. Stopped, turned back. "If you need help," he said, "there are people who—" "I said, get out." He left. He didn't see her again for 2 weeks. During that time, Lucas tried to forget about the whole thing. He had enough problems without getting involved in someone else's breakdown. His son was struggling in school. The car was making a noise he couldn't afford to fix. His landlord was talking about raising the rent. He didn't have space in his life for a billionaire CEO's addiction. But every time he cleaned that office, every time he saw the overflowing trash, the empty bottles, the evidence of someone spiraling, he thought about Sarah, his wife, the woman who'd smiled through her pain until she couldn't anymore, the woman he'd failed to save because he didn't see the signs until it was too late. Thursday night, 2 weeks after their conversation, Lucas was finishing the executive floor when he heard something. A sound. Quiet. Muffled. Coming from the corner office. He stopped walking, listened. There it was again. A gasping noise. Sharp. Painful. Lucas dropped his spray bottle and ran. Vanessa Reed's office door was closed, but unlocked. He shoved it open. She was on the floor behind her desk, curled on her side, one hand clutching her chest, the other reaching toward nothing. Her whole body was shaking, not trembling, full-body convulsions. Pill bottles scattered across the carpet around her. Lucas dropped to his knees beside her. "Can you hear me?" She couldn't answer. Her eyes were open but unfocused. Her breathing came in short, desperate gasps that didn't sound like they were getting enough air. Okay, I'm calling 911 up." Her hand shot out, grabbed his wrist, hard. "No." The word came out strangled. "No ambulance." "You need a hospital." "No." She was shaking harder now. "Can't. They'll find out." "Board will—" "Can't." Lucas stared at her. This woman was dying and she was worried about her reputation. He made a decision. "All right. No ambulance, but I'm not leaving you like this." He pulled out his phone, dialed someone he hadn't called in over a year, his former brother-in-law, the one who'd been a paramedic before switching careers. Jake answered on the third ring. "Lucas, it's 1 a.m. I need your help, now. No questions. Can you come to Pinnacle Tower, 30th floor?" Silence. Then, "What's going on?" "Someone's having a medical emergency. Won't go to a hospital. I need you to check her out. Make sure she's not dying." "Lucas, I'm not a paramedic anymore." "Jake, please." Another pause. 15 minutes. Lucas hung up, looked down at Vanessa. Her shaking had slowed, but her breathing was still wrong. Shallow. Irregular. He carefully moved her into a sitting position, propped her against the desk, grabbed the trash can and set it beside her in case she needed to throw up. "What did you take?" he asked. She didn't answer. Lucas picked up one of the pill bottles. Adderall, another one, Xanax. Another. Modafinil. Jesus Christ. How many? He asked again. I don't know. Her voice was barely a whisper. Lost count. Needed to. Meeting tomorrow. Had to focus. You're not going to any meeting tomorrow. Have to. She tried to stand up, collapsed immediately. Investors. Quarterly report. If I don't... You'll die, Lucas finished. That's what happens if you keep doing this. Vanessa laughed. It sounded broken. You don't understand. If I show weakness, they'll tear me apart. The board. The investors. Everyone. Better than being dead. You really think so? The question hung there. Lucas had been asking himself the same thing for 2 years. After Sarah died. After the funeral. After the bills piled up and his son stopped talking for 3 months and everything fell apart. Was being alive actually better than the alternative? He still didn't have a good answer. But he was here, still breathing, still trying. That had to mean something. Yeah, he said finally. I think so. Vanessa closed her eyes. Tears ran down her face. She didn't wipe them away. Jake showed up 12 minutes later. Lucas met him at the elevator. Explained the situation quickly. Jake didn't ask questions, just followed him to the office. He checked Vanessa's pulse, her pupils, her breathing, asked her questions she could barely answer, made her drink water, monitored her for 30 minutes. Finally, he pulled Lucas aside. She's stable, but she needs to see a real doctor, and she needs to stop taking whatever combination she's been using. Her heart rate is all over the place. Will she be okay tonight? Probably. But Lucas, this is serious. She's going to crash hard once everything wears off. And if she keeps mixing stimulants and sedatives like this, eventually her body's going to give out. Lucas nodded. Thanks for coming. Jake studied him. You know this person? Not really. Then why are you helping her? Lucas looked back at Vanessa. She was still sitting against the desk, eyes closed, breathing slowly. Because nobody helped Sarah, he said quietly, and I'm tired of watching people die alone. Jake left without saying anything else. Mag. Lucas stayed until 4 in the morning. Vanessa's shaking stopped around 3. Her breathing evened out. She fell asleep sitting up. He didn't move her, just sat a few feet away and made sure she kept breathing. At 4:30, she woke up suddenly, looked around confused, saw him. You're still here? Yeah. Why? Lucas shrugged. Didn't have anywhere better to be. But yeah, that wasn't true. He needed to get home, check on his son, sleep for 2 hours before starting his day shift at the warehouse. But something kept him in that office. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was the fact that he couldn't save Sarah, but he could sit here and make sure Vanessa Reed didn't die on a Thursday night. Vanessa pushed herself up slowly. Her movements were shaky but more controlled. I have a meeting in 4 hours. No, you don't. I just told you. Call in sick. I can't do that. You almost died, Lucas said flatly. Call in sick. Vanessa stared at him. For a moment he thought she'd argue. Tell him to leave. Fire him if she had that authority. Instead she laughed. A real laugh this time. Bitter and exhausted, but genuine. You're bossy for a janitor. And you're stubborn for a CEO. She smiled. It looked painful. I don't know how to stop. Stop what? All of it. She gestured vaguely. The meetings, the pressure, the pills, everything. It's been so long since I lived any other way. I don't remember what normal feels like. Lucas understood that. After Sarah died, he'd forgotten what normal felt like too. Forgot what it was like to wake up without the weight of grief crushing his chest. Forgot what it was like to look forward to something. He was still trying to remember. Normal is overrated anyway, he said. Vanessa looked at him, really looked at him, like she was seeing him for the first time. What's your name? Lucas. I'm Vanessa. I know. She laughed again. Right. My name's on everything. She paused. Do you have kids, Lucas? A son. He's 8. Is he the reason you work nights? One of them. Vanessa nodded slowly. I don't have kids. I don't have anyone, actually. No family. No real friends. Just business partners and employees and people who want something from me. She looked down at her hands. Sometimes I think that's why it's so easy to keep going like this. Because if I disappeared tomorrow, nobody would actually miss me. They'd miss the CEO, but not me. Lucas thought about that, about his son, about Jake, about the few people in his life who'd stuck around after everything fell apart. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard, he said honestly. Vanessa didn't argue. The sun was starting to rise. Orange light crept across the city skyline. Lucas needed to leave. His shift at the warehouse started in 2 hours. He stood up. You should go home, get some sleep. I don't sleep much. You should try. Vanessa stood too, steadier now. She looked at the mess of pill bottles on the floor, the evidence of her breakdown scattered across her perfect office. I'll clean that up, Lucas said. You don't have to. Yeah, I do. It's my job. He picked up the bottles one by one, threw them in the trash bag. Vanessa watched him without moving. When he finished, she said quietly, Thank you. Lucas nodded. Don't die before next Thursday, all right? I don't want to find a body. It was a terrible joke, dark humor at the worst time, but Vanessa smiled anyway. I'll try not to. He left her standing in her office, watching the sunrise alone. Lucas didn't expect to see her again. He figured she'd forget about the whole thing. Embarrassed. Move on. Maybe request a different cleaning service so she wouldn't have to face the janitor who'd seen her at her lowest. But the following Thursday, when he unlocked her office at 1:30, she was there again, sitting at her desk, working on her laptop. No pills in sight, no vodka bottles. Just a cup of tea and a stack of papers. She looked up when he walked in. Hi, Lucas hesitated. Hi, you want me to come back later? No, it's fine. She gestured around the office. Do your thing. He started cleaning, quietly, carefully. The whole time he could feel her watching him. After a few minutes, she said, I went to a doctor. Lucas stopped vacuuming. Yeah? Yeah. Told him everything. He yelped. He said I was lucky I didn't have a heart attack. She paused. He wants me to go to rehab, inpatient, 30 days minimum. You gonna do it? I don't know. Vanessa closed her laptop. If I disappear for 30 days, the board will ask questions. Investors will panic. Stock prices could drop. Everything could fall apart. Or, Lucas said, you could die, and then everything falls apart anyway. Vanessa smiled faintly. You're very blunt. Life's too short to waste time lying. She considered that. Can I ask you something? Sure. How did your wife die, Ma? Lucas didn't answer right away. He never knew how to answer that question. The truth was complicated, painful, full of guilt and what-ifs that still kept him awake at night. But Vanessa was looking at him with genuine curiosity, not pity, not judgment, just honest interest. So he told her. Car accident, he said quietly. She was driving home from work, hit a tree going 70 miles an hour. Police said she fell asleep at the wheel. But I knew better. I'd seen the pills, the drinking, the way she'd push herself past exhaustion because she thought she had to be perfect. For me, for our son, for everyone. He paused. I should have stopped her, made her get help, but I didn't, and then she was gone. The office was silent. Vanessa's expression had changed, softened. I'm sorry. Me too. Is that why you stayed? That night? Lucas nodded. I couldn't save her, but maybe I could save someone else. Even if that someone is a billionaire CEO who doesn't need a janitor's help. Vanessa stood up, walked around her desk, stopped in front of him. I do need help, she said quietly. I've needed it for a long time. I just didn't know how to ask. So ask. She looked at him. This powerful woman who'd built an empire, who'd been featured in magazines and interviewed on television, who'd convinced the world she was invincible. Help me, Vanessa whispered. And Lucas said, Okay, she. Deish-sasan. That's how it started. Not with a dramatic intervention, not with a tearful confession, just two broken people in an empty office at 2 a.m, both trying to figure out how to keep living. Over the next 2 weeks, Lucas and Vanessa developed an unspoken routine. Every Thursday night, he'd clean her office. Every Thursday night, she'd be there working. And somewhere between the vacuuming and the trash removal, they'd talk. She told him about her parents, how they died in a plane crash when she was 19, how she'd built her company from nothing because she needed to prove she could survive without them. He told her about his son, how Charlie hadn't spoken for 3 months after Sarah died, how Lucas had learned to communicate through pictures and patience, how slowly, painfully, his son had started healing. They didn't talk about the pills, or the drinking, or the fact that Vanessa was clearly still struggling. But Lucas noticed things, the way her hands shook during late-night meetings, the way she flinched when her phone rang, the way she'd stare at nothing for long stretches of time, like she was somewhere else entirely. She was holding on. Barely. One Thursday night, 3 weeks after their first real conversation, Vanessa said something that changed everything. "I'm scared." Lucas looked up from wiping down her conference table. Of what? Of stopping. She was standing by the window, staring at the city lights. If I slow down, if I take time off, if I admit I'm not okay, what if I lose everything? What if they replace me? What if I'm not strong enough to come back? Lucas set down his cleaning cloth, walked over to stand beside her. "What if you don't have a choice?" he said gently. "What if you keep going and your body gives out? What if next time I find you on that floor, you don't wake up?" Vanessa's reflection in the window showed tears streaming down her face. "Sometimes I think that would be easier." "No, you don't." "How do you know?" "Because you're still here." Lucas turned to face her. "You're still fighting, still showing up, still trying. That means something." She looked at him. "Does it?" "Yeah, it does." They stood there in silence, two people who'd lost too much, two people who were tired of pretending everything was fine. Finally, Vanessa said, "If I go to rehab, if I tell the board the truth, will you visit me?" Lucas didn't hesitate. "Yes." "Why would you do that?" "Because," he said simply, "everyone deserves to have someone who shows up." Vanessa started crying harder, not the quiet tears from before, full sobs that shook her shoulders. Lucas didn't know what to do. He wasn't good at comfort, wasn't good at knowing the right words. But he remembered what helped when Charlie cried, when the grief got too heavy and words didn't work. He stepped forward and hugged her. Vanessa went rigid. Then she collapsed against him, held on like she was drowning. They stood there for a long time, Lucas holding a woman he barely knew. Vanessa finally letting herself break in front of someone who wouldn't judge her for it. When she finally pulled away, she wiped her face roughly. "I'm calling the doctor tomorrow." "Good. And I'm telling the board on Monday." "Even better." She laughed weakly. "You make it sound so simple." "It's not simple. It's terrifying. But you'll do it anyway." Vanessa looked at him with something that might have been hope. "How do you know?" "Because I've watched you survive the impossible for weeks now. This is just the next impossible thing." She smiled, a real smile, small and fragile but genuine. "Thank you, Lucas. Don't thank me yet. Wait until you're through the hard part." But standing there in that office with the sunrise breaking across the city and a woman who'd finally decided to choose herself over her image, Lucas felt something he hadn't felt in 2 years. Purpose. Maybe saving someone else was how you saved yourself. Monday morning came faster than Vanessa expected. She sat in the boardroom 40 minutes early, alone. The long table stretched out in front of her like an execution platform. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking, so she kept them folded in her lap where nobody could see. The speech was memorized. She'd practiced it 50 times over the weekend. Simple, direct, honest. But every time she tried to say the words out loud, her throat closed up. Her phone buzzed. A text from Lucas. "You got this." 3 words. That's all. But they helped more than he probably knew. Vanessa typed back, "Easy for you to say. You're not about to commit career suicide." His response came immediately. "You're not dying today. That's what matters." She almost laughed. Almost. The boardroom door opened. Richard Chen walked in first. Chief Financial Officer, 58 years old, cold eyes that missed nothing. He'd been skeptical of Vanessa since the day she became CEO at 28. "Vanessa, you're here early." He set his briefcase down, studied her face. You look terrible. Thanks, Richard. I'm serious. When's the last time you slept? I sleep fine. That's not what I asked. Before Vanessa could respond, 3 more board members filed in. Margaret Torres, David Sung, Patricia Williams, all of them successful. All of them older than her. All of them watching her like hawks waiting for weakness. The remaining members trickled in over the next 10 minutes. By 9 o'clock, all 12 seats were filled except for the one at the head of the table where Vanessa sat. Richard cleared his throat. All right, let's begin. Vanessa, you called this emergency meeting. What's going on? This was it. Vanessa looked at each face around the table. People she'd worked with for years. People who'd trusted her to lead a billion-dollar company. People who were about to lose that trust completely. I'm addicted to prescription stimulants, she said. The words came out flat, mechanical. I've been abusing Adderall, modafinil, and several other medications for the past 2 years. I've also been mixing them with alcohol and sedatives. 3 weeks ago, I had what my doctor called a near-fatal overdose. I need to enter an inpatient rehabilitation program immediately. Silence. Complete. Crushing. Silence. Richard's expression didn't change. Margaret's mouth fell open. David looked at Patricia like he was waiting for someone else to react first. Finally, Richard said, You're joking. I'm not. Vanessa. Margaret leaned forward. Her voice was careful, measured. Do you understand what you're saying right now? Yes. Do you understand what this means for the company? Yes. Then why? Margaret stopped herself, started over. How long has this been going on? 2 years. Maybe longer. I lost track. David spoke up. And you're just telling us now? After almost killing yourself? I didn't think I had a problem before. You didn't think... Richard cut himself off, stood up, paced to the window. Do you have any idea what this does to us? To the investors? To the stock price when this gets out? It doesn't have to get out, Patricia said quickly. We can handle this quietly. Medical leave, keep the details private. Medical leave? Richard turned around. She just admitted to 2 years of drug abuse while running a billion-dollar company. Every decision she's made, every contract she's signed, every acquisition, all of it compromised. That's not fair, Vanessa started. Fair? Richard's voice rose. You want to talk about fair? We trusted you, gave you this position when half the board thought you were too young, too inexperienced. And now you're telling us you've been high the entire time. I wasn't high. I was functional. More than functional. I increased revenue by 40% while abusing drugs that could have killed you. Margaret's voice was quiet but sharp. Vanessa, we care about you, but you have to see how bad this looks. Vanessa did see it. She'd known exactly how bad it would look. That's why she'd hidden it for so long. David cleared his throat. What's the timeline for rehab? 30 days minimum, possibly longer, depending on my progress. 30 days? Richard laughed bitterly. We have the TechBridge merger closing in 6 weeks, the annual shareholder meeting in 2 months. You think we can just pause everything while you go get clean? I'll work remotely, video calls, email, whatever you need. That's not how inpatient rehab works, Patricia said gently. You know that. Vanessa did know that. The doctor had been very clear. No phone, no computer, no contact with work. Complete disconnection for a minimum of 30 days. Then promote someone temporarily, Vanessa said. Richard, you've wanted my job since day one. Take it for a month. Richard's expression hardened. This isn't about me wanting your job, isn't it? Enough. Margaret stood up. Both of you, this isn't productive. She looked at Vanessa. You need help. We understand that. But you also need to understand that this changes everything. The board needs time to discuss our options. What options? Vanessa felt her chest tighten. I'm asking for medical leave, that's it. It's not that simple anymore. Margaret's voice was kind but firm. You've admitted to substance abuse while in a leadership position. There are legal implications, liability issues. We need to consult with our attorneys before we make any decisions. The room tilted slightly. Vanessa gripped the edge of the table. You're going to fire me. Nobody said that. Well, you don't have to say it. I can see it. She looked around the table. All of you, you're already deciding how to get rid of me quietly. Richard sat back down. Vanessa, you did this to yourself. I know that. Then you know we don't have a choice. There's always a choice, Vanessa said. But her voice came out weak, desperate. Patricia spoke carefully. What if we frame it differently? Not as addiction, as exhaustion, burnout. CEOs take sabbaticals all the time. That's lying, Vanessa said. That's protecting the company. I'm done lying. Richard rubbed his face. Then you're done being CEO, because the truth destroys everything we've built. The words hit like a physical blow. Vanessa had known this was a possibility, had prepared herself for it, but hearing it said out loud made it real in a way nothing else could. I need to leave the room, she said quietly. Vanessa, I need to leave. Now, Shem. She stood up, walked to the door. Her legs felt shaky, but she made it to the hallway before her knees gave out. She sat on the floor outside the boardroom, put her head between her knees, tried to breathe. This was what honesty got you. Destruction. Her phone buzzed, another text from Lucas. How'd it go? Vanessa stared at the message, didn't know how to answer, finally typed, I think I just lost everything. His response came fast. But you're still breathing, barely. That's still better than the alternative. Vanessa closed her eyes. Lucas made it sound so simple, like survival was the only thing that mattered, but he didn't understand what she'd just sacrificed. The company she'd built, the reputation she'd spent years creating, the power she'd fought for. All of it gone because she'd told the truth. The boardroom door opened. Margaret stepped out, sat down beside Vanessa on the floor. That was hard, Markim, Margaret said. That was a disaster, and it was honest. Vanessa laughed bitterly. Lot of good that did. Margaret was quiet for a moment. Then she said, My daughter had a problem with pills. After her divorce, started with pain medication after a surgery, ended with her losing custody of her kids. She paused. She went to rehab 3 years ago, hated every minute of it, but she's sober now, has her kids back, says it saved her life. Vanessa looked at her. I didn't know that, and nobody does. We kept it quiet, like you did. Margaret smiled sadly. That's what people like us do. We hide. We pretend. We convince ourselves we can handle everything alone. She stood up, offered her hand, but maybe that's the problem. Vanessa took her hand, let Margaret pull her to her feet. What happens now? Vanessa asked. Now we go back in there, and we figure this out, together. They walked back into the boardroom. The arguing stopped when they entered. All eyes turned to Vanessa. She sat down, faced them, waited. Finally, Richard said, We've discussed it. Here's what's going to happen. You'll take a medical leave effective immediately. We'll announce it as a temporary health-related absence. No details, no specifics. Just that you're taking time to focus on your well-being. Vanessa nodded slowly. And my position? Richard will serve as interim CEO during your absence, Margaret said. When you complete treatment, we'll reassess. Reassess meaning you'll decide if I still have a job. Reassess meaning we'll determine if you're healthy enough to return to this level of responsibility, Patricia corrected. It wasn't what Vanessa wanted, but it was better than being fired immediately. Okay, she said quietly. There's one more condition, Richard added. You need to sign a temporary power of attorney. Give us authorization to make company decisions in your absence without needing your approval. You want me to give up control completely. You're going to rehab. You won't have access to phones or computers. We need the authority to act without waiting for you. Vanessa felt something crack inside her chest. Giving up control meant giving up everything. It meant trusting these people not to push her out permanently. It meant accepting that she might return to find herself replaced. But what choice did she have? Fine, she said. I'll sign. The meeting ended 20 minutes later. Legal documents would be drafted by end of day. Vanessa had 72 hours to transition her responsibilities before entering treatment. She walked out of that boardroom feeling hollowed out, empty. Her phone buzzed again. Lucas. Still breathing? She typed back. Unfortunately. Good. Charlie wants to know if you like pizza. Vanessa stared at the message. What? My son. He's worried about you. Says people who are sad should eat pizza. His logic is questionable, but the sentiment is nice. Despite everything, Vanessa smiled. Tell him I love pizza. He says you should come over for dinner tomorrow. Fair warning, he's 8. Dinner is chaos. I have a company to destroy in 72 hours. You have to eat anyway. Vanessa hesitated, then, what time? 6. I'll text you the address. She shouldn't go. She had work to finish, transitions to plan, a life to dismantle. But the thought of sitting alone in her penthouse for the next 3 days sounded unbearable. I'll be there. Lucas sent back a thumbs-up emoji. Vanessa put her phone away and went back to her office to start packing up years of her life into boxes. The next day felt surreal. Vanessa spent 12 hours transferring files, briefing Richard on ongoing projects, and writing detailed transition documents for everything she'd been handling. By 5:30, she was exhausted. She'd barely slept, hadn't eaten since breakfast. Her hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't from pills. It was from stress. She almost texted Lucas to cancel dinner, but then she remembered his son asking about pizza. Remembered Lucas saying everyone deserves someone who shows up. Vanessa left her office at 5:45. Drove to the address Lucas had sent. A small apartment complex in a neighborhood that looked nothing like the places she usually went. No doorman, no security, just a regular building where regular people lived regular lives. She found apartment 3B and knocked. The door opened immediately. A small boy with messy brown hair and bright eyes stared up at her. Are you Vanessa? He asked. Yes. My dad says you're a CEO. What's that? It means I run a company. That sounds boring. Charlie. Lucas appeared behind his son. What did we talk about? Being polite to guests. Charlie stepped aside. Sorry, come in. We have pizza. Do you like pepperoni? I do. Good. Because we have a lot of it. The apartment was small, lived in. There were toys scattered across the floor, drawings taped to the walls, a stack of books on the coffee table. Everything was a little messy, a little chaotic. Vanessa loved it immediately. Lucas looked embarrassed. Sorry about the mess. We weren't expecting... It's perfect, Vanessa said honestly. They ate pizza at a small kitchen table. Charlie talked nonstop about school, his favorite video game, a frog he'd found outside, and approximately 50 other topics. Lucas kept telling him to slow down and let Vanessa eat, but Vanessa didn't mind. It was nice, normal, the kind of family dinner she'd never experienced growing up. After dinner, Charlie dragged her to the living room to show her his drawings. Most of them were of superheroes. One was of his dad. That's Dad after Mom died, Charlie explained, pointing to a figure colored in dark blue and black. He was really sad for a long time. Lucas cleared his throat from the kitchen. Charlie, it's okay. Vanessa studied the drawing. Your dad told me about your mom. I'm sorry, Charlie nodded seriously. It was bad, but Dad says Mom would want us to keep going, so we do. He picked up another drawing. This one was brighter, yellow and orange and red. This is us now. We're still sad sometimes, but also happy sometimes. Dad says that's okay. Your dad is very smart. I know. Charlie grinned. He's also bad at cooking. That's why we eat a lot of pizza. Lucas walked over with a dish towel. Thanks for telling all my secrets, buddy. You're welcome. Oh. Vanessa stayed for 2 hours, long enough to watch Charlie fall asleep on the couch during a movie, long enough to help Lucas carry him to his bedroom, long enough to sit on the small balcony and talk while the city hummed below them. Your son is amazing, Vanessa said. He's a good kid. Been through more than anyone his age should have to handle. He seems happy. Most days, Lucas leaned against the railing. Some days are harder. He still has nightmares. Still asks when Mom is coming home even though he knows she's not. But we're managing. Oh, how do you do it? Raise him alone while working 2 jobs? Lucas shrugged. You just do. Because the alternative is giving up. And that's not an option when someone depends on you. Vanessa thought about that. Nobody depends on me. That's not true. It is. The company will be fine without me. Probably better. Richard's competent. The board will adapt. In 6 months, nobody will even remember I was there. You don't believe that. I don't know what I believe anymore. Vanessa wrapped her arms around herself. I spent 10 years building something I thought mattered, and now I'm walking away from all of it. What if I made a mistake? What if I should have just kept going? You'd be dead, Lucas said simply. That's what would have happened. You don't know that? Yeah, I do. I watched my wife make the same choice you almost made. She chose work over health, chose pretending over asking for help, and now she's gone. His voice was steady, but Vanessa heard the pain underneath. I'm not going to watch someone else make that mistake. Not if I can help it. Vanessa felt tears building again. She was so tired of crying. I'm scared. Of rehab? Of everything. What if I can't do it? What if I fail? What if I come back and there's nothing left? Lucas turned to face her. Then you start over. Build something new. Figure out who you are without the company and the pressure and the pills. Maybe that version of you is better than the one you've been. Or maybe that version of me is weak and useless. Then you'll be weak and useless, but you'll be alive. Vanessa laughed despite herself. You're terrible at pep talks. Yeah, I know. Sarah used to say the same thing. He smiled. But I'm good at showing up, and sometimes that's more important than saying the right words. They stood there in comfortable silence. Two people who barely knew each other but understood each other in ways that mattered. Finally, Vanessa said, Thank you for dinner? Anytime. I mean it. Tonight was the first time in months I felt like a normal person. Lucas looked at her seriously. You are a normal person, Vanessa. You just forgot. She left his apartment feeling lighter than she had in weeks. The next 2 days passed in a blur. Vanessa finalized her transition documents, signed the power of attorney papers, met with her assistant to explain the situation without giving details, packed up her office. On Wednesday afternoon, she stood in her empty office one last time. The walls were bare. The desk was cleared. Everything that marked this space as hers was gone. Richard knocked on the open door. Got a minute? Sure. He walked in, looked around. Weird seeing it like this. Yeah. For what it's worth, Richard said carefully, I don't want your job this way. I always figured if I became CEO, it would be because I earned it, not because you self-destructed. Vanessa appreciated the honesty. You'll do fine. That's not the point. He paused. Look, I've been hard on you, questioned your decisions, pushed back on your strategies. But you're a damn good CEO, Vanessa, and I hope you come back. She looked at him surprised. Really? Really? The company needs someone who cares the way you do, even if that caring almost killed you. He held out his hand. Get better. Then come back and make my life difficult again. Vanessa shook his hand. I'll try. After Richard left, she took one last look around the office. Then she walked out and didn't look back. That night, Lucas came to her penthouse. He'd offered to drive her to the rehab facility the next morning. Vanessa had insisted she could drive herself, but Lucas had refused to take no for an answer. You shouldn't be alone tonight, he'd said. So now he was sitting on her expensive couch, looking completely out of place in her luxury apartment while she packed a bag for 30 days in treatment. This place is insane, Lucas called from the living room. I know. How many bedrooms? 3. For one person? I don't use the other 2. That's depressing. Vanessa walked out with her packed bag. Everything about my life is depressing. That's why I'm leaving it. Lucas stood up, looked at her seriously. You ready? No. Good. Being ready is overrated anyway. They didn't talk much that night. Lucas stayed until midnight making sure Vanessa was okay. Before he left, he said, I'll pick you up at 8 tomorrow. You don't have to. I know. I'm doing it anyway. After he left, Vanessa sat alone in her penthouse. Her last night in this space for at least a month. Maybe longer. Maybe forever if she decided she couldn't come back to this life. She thought about calling someone. Her assistant. Her personal trainer. One of the business associates she sometimes had drinks with. But none of those relationships felt real. They were all transactional, professional, based on what she could do for them or what they could do for her. The only person who'd shown up for her without wanting anything in return was a night shift janitor with a beat-up car and a son who drew pictures in crayon. Vanessa went to bed feeling grateful and terrified in equal measure. Lucas picked her up at 8 sharp. Charlie was in the back seat playing a handheld video game. Couldn't find a sitter. Lucas explained. I hope that's okay. It's fine. They drove to the facility in silence. It was located an hour outside the city, a converted estate that looked more like a luxury resort than a medical treatment center. When they pulled up to the entrance, Vanessa's chest felt tight. I can't do this, she said suddenly. Lucas turned off the engine. Yes, you can. No, I really can't. This is a mistake. I should go back, keep working, figure something else out. Vanessa. Lucas's voice was firm. Look at me. She looked at him. You almost died 3 weeks ago. You admitted that to me, to your board, to yourself. This isn't a mistake. This is survival. But, what if? No what ifs. You're going in there. You're going to be scared and angry and miserable, and then you're going to get better. Because that's what happens when you stop running and face things. Vanessa's hands were shaking. Will you visit? Every week, I promise. What if I change my mind and want to leave? Then I'll tell you to stay anyway. She almost smiled. You're bossy. You've mentioned that before. Charlie looked up from his game. Are you going to be okay? Vanessa turned to look at him. This kid who'd lost his mom, who'd survived grief that would have destroyed most adults, who still found ways to be happy. I don't know, she said honestly, but I'm going to try. That's good enough, Charlie said seriously. Trying is how you get better. Vanessa grabbed her bag. Lucas walked her to the entrance. Before she went inside, he said, Hey, you're not alone in this. I know. I mean it. You call if you need anything. I'll figure it out. Why? Vanessa asked. Why do you care so much about what happens to me? Lucas thought about that. Because nobody cared about what happened to Sarah, and I can't change that. But I can show up for you, so I am. Vanessa hugged him, quick and awkward because neither of them were good at physical affection. When she pulled away, she said, Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when you're 6 months sober and complaining about board meetings again, Dad. She laughed. Then she turned and walked through the doors. The intake process took 3 hours. Medical evaluation, psychological assessment, bag search where they confiscated her phone and laptop, room assignment. Orientation with a counselor who explained the schedule and rules. No contact with the outside world for the first week. Group therapy every morning. Individual sessions 3 times a week. Mandatory wellness activities. Strict medication monitoring. Vanessa's room was small but comfortable. A single bed, a desk, a window overlooking gardens, nothing like her penthouse. She sat on the bed feeling completely disconnected from reality. This wasn't her life. She was a CEO. She ran meetings and closed deals and made decisions that affected thousands of people. She didn't belong in rehab with junkies and alcoholics and people who'd lost control. Except she did belong here, because she had lost control. That night at dinner, she sat alone at a table watching other patients interact. Most of them looked normal, regular people. Some were around her age, some were older, some younger. A woman sat down across from her, maybe 40, tired eyes, nervous smile. First day? She asked. That obvious? You've got the same terrified look I had when I got here 3 weeks ago. She held out her hand. I'm Denise. Vanessa. What's your poison? Pills? Alcohol? Both. Vanessa hesitated. Then, pills and alcohol and work? Mostly work. Denise laughed. A fellow workaholic. Those are the hardest to treat. We hide behind productivity like it's a virtue. It is a virtue. No, it's avoidance. At least that's what my therapist keeps telling me. Denise took a bite of her food. What do you do? I was a CEO. Was? I stepped down to come here. That takes guts. Denise looked impressed. Most people in your position would have kept going until they dropped dead at their desk. I almost did. But you didn't. That's what matters. They talked through dinner. Denise explained how the program worked, what to expect in group therapy, which counselors were good and which ones just went through the motions. By the time dinner ended, Vanessa felt slightly less terrified. That night, she lay in her small bed staring at the ceiling. No phone to check, no emails to answer, no work to distract her. Just silence. And for the first time in years, Vanessa had to sit with herself. Her thoughts, her fears, her grief. It was the longest night of her life. But when morning came and a counselor knocked on her door to tell her it was time for group therapy, Vanessa got up. She walked to that first session feeling like she was walking to her own execution. But she walked, and that somehow felt like progress. The group therapy room had 12 chairs arranged in a circle. Vanessa chose one near the back and sat down before she could change her mind and run. 8 other people filtered in over the next few minutes. Some looked comfortable. Others looked as terrified as she felt. A counselor walked in last, mid-50s, gray hair pulled back, kind eyes that had seen too much. Good morning, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Dr. Patricia Grant. We have someone new joining us today. She looked at Vanessa. Would you like to introduce yourself? Vanessa's throat went dry. I'm Vanessa. Welcome, Vanessa. We're glad you're here. Dr. Grant sat down. Who wants to start today? A man in his 30s raised his hand. I'll go. I'm Marcus, day 23, and I'm pissed off. What's making you angry? Dr. Grant asked. Everything. This place, the rules, the fact that I'm here instead of at work. My wife won't return my calls. My business partner is probably screwing me over while I'm stuck in group therapy talking about my feelings. Marcus's voice was rising. I don't need this. I was fine. I had everything under control. If you had everything under control, a woman across the circle said quietly, you wouldn't be here. Screw you, Denise. Marcus, Dr. Grant said calmly. Take a breath. I don't want to take a breath. I want to leave. This whole thing is a waste of time. Vanessa felt every word like it was coming from her own mouth. That's exactly what she'd been thinking since she arrived. This was pointless. She didn't belong here. She should be in meetings, not sitting in a circle with strangers discussing feelings. Why is it a waste of time? Dr. Grant asked. Because talking doesn't fix anything. Action fixes things. Work fixes things. Sitting around crying about your problems just makes you weak. Is that what you think strength is? Never showing vulnerability? Yes. Marcus crossed his arms. In my world, weakness gets you destroyed. You show one crack and people exploit it. So you don't show cracks. You push through. You handle it. Whoop. Vanessa understood that completely. That's how she'd survived, how she'd built her company, how she'd become successful. And how's that working for you? Denise asked. Marcus glared at her. I had a 7-figure income before I came here. I was running 2 companies. I had investors throwing money at me. So yeah, it was working great. Until it wasn't, someone else said. Until my wife found me passed out in my office with a bottle of whiskey and called 911. But that was one time. One mistake. It's never one time, Dr. Grant said gently. That's what you'll learn here. The moment we see is never the first moment. It's just the first moment someone else sees. Marcus went quiet. Dr. Grant turned to Vanessa. Does any of this resonate with you? Vanessa wanted to say no, wanted to stay invisible, but everyone was looking at her now. Yes, she said quietly. All of it. What part specifically? The part about pushing through, about thinking weakness destroys you. I built my career on never showing cracks, never admitting I was struggling, and it worked until she stopped. Until what? Until I collapsed in my office at 3 a.m. and almost died. The room was silent. What were you taking? Dr. Grant asked. Adderall, modafinil, Xanax when I needed to sleep, vodka when the pills weren't enough. Saying it out loud made it sound worse somehow, more real. How long? 2 years, maybe longer. I don't remember when it started exactly. It just became normal. And nobody noticed? Vanessa laughed bitterly. People noticed I was productive, successful, making the company profitable. That's all that mattered. What about friends? Family? I don't have family. My parents died when I was 19, and friends. Vanessa paused. I have colleagues, business associates, people who want things from me. But actual friends? No. That's lonely, Denise said. I didn't think about it much. I was too busy working. Dr. Grant leaned forward. What changed? What made you finally ask for help? Vanessa thought about Lucas, about finding her on the floor, about him staying when he had no reason to, about him telling her that everyone deserves someone who shows up. Someone saw me, she said finally, really saw me, not the CEO version, the actual person underneath. And he didn't run, he stayed. And that scared me more than anything else. Why did it scare you? Because I'd spent so long pretending to be fine. And if someone could see through that, it meant I wasn't fooling anyone. It meant I was failing at the one thing I thought I was good at, holding it together. Maybe holding it together was never the goal, Dr. Grant said quietly. Maybe the goal is learning to fall apart without losing yourself completely. Vanessa didn't know what to say to that. The rest of the session continued around her. Other people shared their stories, their struggles, their fears. By the time it ended, Vanessa felt exhausted. She went back to her room and sat on the bed staring at nothing. A knock came at her door an hour later. Denise, you okay? She asked. Not really. Yeah, first day is brutal. Denise sat down on the desk chair. For what it's worth, you did good in group. Most people don't open up that much on day one. I didn't feel like I had a choice. You always have a choice. You chose honesty. That's harder than you think. Denise paused. Can I give you some advice? Sure. Stop comparing yourself to who you were before. That person is gone. You're someone new now, and that's terrifying but also kind of freeing once you accept it. I don't want to be someone new. I want to go back to my life. Your life almost killed you. I know that. But it was mine. I built it. I controlled it. Vanessa gestured around the room. This is someone else controlling me, telling me when to eat and sleep and talk. I hate it. Everyone hates it at first. Give it time. After Denise left, Vanessa lay down and stared at the ceiling. She wanted her phone, wanted to check emails, wanted to know what was happening at the company, whether Richard was making good decisions, whether the board was already planning to replace her permanently. But there was nothing to do except sit with the anxiety. The first week was hell. Vanessa went through withdrawal symptoms she hadn't expected. Headaches, nausea, shaking hands, insomnia worse than anything she'd experienced before. The medical staff monitored her constantly, gave her medications to ease the symptoms. But nothing made it easy. Group therapy every morning. Individual counseling sessions where a therapist named Dr. Reeves asked questions Vanessa didn't want to answer. Meditation classes that made her want to scream because sitting still with her thoughts felt impossible. By day 5, she was ready to leave. She packed her bag, went to Dr. Grant's office, demanded to be released. You can leave any time you want, Dr. Grant said calmly, but you'll be leaving against medical advice, and you'll be leaving without completing treatment. I don't care. This isn't working. What isn't working? Any of it. I'm miserable. I can't sleep. I hate every minute of being here. I made a mistake coming. Dr. Grant nodded. Okay, let me ask you something. Why are you really here? Because I'm an addict. No. Why are you really here? What are you trying to escape? Vanessa didn't answer. You're not just trying to get clean, Vanessa. You're trying to figure out who you are without the drugs and the work and the constant performance. And that's terrifying because maybe you don't know. That's not true. Isn't it? When was the last time you did something just because you wanted to? Not because it helped your career or impressed someone or made you look successful. When was the last time you were just yourself? Vanessa thought about that. Couldn't remember. I don't know who I am without all of that, she admitted quietly. Then this is where you figure it out. But you can't do that if you leave. Vanessa unpacked her bag that night. Stayed. The second week was different, worse in some ways, better in others. The physical withdrawal symptoms started fading, but the emotional ones got stronger. Vanessa cried during therapy sessions, got angry during group, spent hours walking the grounds trying to process feelings she'd buried for years. Dr. Reeves, her individual therapist, focused on grief, the loss of her parents, the trauma of building a company alone, the pressure of being young and successful and constantly judged. "You've been running from grief for over a decade," Dr. Reeves said during one session. "You buried yourself in work so you wouldn't have to feel it. But grief doesn't disappear. It just waits." I dealt with my parents' death. I went to therapy after it happened. For how long? 3 months. Then I started the company and didn't have time anymore. 3 months isn't enough to process losing both parents in a traumatic accident. It had to be enough. I had a business to run. No, you had a business to hide behind. Dr. Reeves leaned forward. What would have happened if you'd taken more time? If you'd really grieved instead of pushing forward? I would have fallen apart. And falling apart would have meant what? Weakness, failure, proving everyone right who said I was too young and too inexperienced to succeed. So you chose success over healing. Yes. And now? Vanessa looked at her hands. Now I'm here. So I guess success wasn't enough. Yes. The breakthrough came during week 3. Group therapy. Marcus was talking again, still angry, still insisting he didn't belong there. "I'm not like the rest of you, he said. "I didn't lose everything. I still have my business, my reputation. My wife is just being dramatic about one incident." "Your wife found you unconscious," Denise interrupted. "That's not dramatic. That's traumatizing. She overreacted." "Did she?" Dr. Grant asked. "Or did she react appropriately to watching someone she loves nearly die?" Marcus went quiet. "What scares you more?" Dr. Grant continued. "Admitting you have a problem? Or admitting that your problem hurt people you care about?" "Both," Marcus said finally. His voice cracked. "I scared her. I saw it in her face when I woke up in the hospital. She was terrified, and I did that to her." "Yes, you did. I don't know how to fix it." "You start by fixing yourself. Then you figure out the rest." Marcus broke down, actually sobbed in the middle of group. 3 weeks of anger finally cracking open to show the fear underneath. Vanessa watched it happen and realized that's what she'd been avoiding. The fear, the shame, the knowledge that her addiction hadn't just hurt her, it had hurt everyone around her who'd had to watch. She thought about Lucas, about him finding her on the floor, about the fear in his voice when he called his brother-in-law, about him staying all night to make sure she kept breathing. She'd never thanked him properly for that. After group ended, Vanessa went to Dr. Grant. "When can I make phone calls?" "After 2 weeks. You're at 3 now. You're allowed 1 call per week starting today." "Can I call someone today?" "Of course." They gave her a phone and 10 minutes of privacy. Vanessa dialed Lucas's number from memory. He answered on the second ring. "Vanessa?" Hearing his voice made something in her chest loosen. "Hi. How are you?" "Terrible. And better. Both at the same time." Lucas laughed. "That sounds about right. You eating?" 3 meals a day. Mandatory." "Good. Charlie was worried you weren't eating enough." "Tell him I'm eating plenty. How is he?" "He's good. Aced a math test. Got in trouble for talking too much during reading time. Normal 8-year-old stuff." Lucas paused. "I'm coming to visit this weekend. They said family visiting hours are Saturday afternoons. You don't have to." "I want to. Plus Charlie made you something. Won't tell me what it is, but he's very proud of it." Vanessa felt tears building. "Lucas, thank you. For everything. For finding me. For staying. For not giving up on me when I was giving up on myself." "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do. You saved my life." "Nah, you saved your own life when you decided to come here. I just drove you." They talked for the remaining 7 minutes. About nothing important. About Charlie's school and Lucas's job and how the weather had been. Normal conversation. The kind Vanessa hadn't had in years. When her time was up, she said, "I'll see you Saturday." Looking forward to it. Saturday came slowly. Vanessa found herself nervous. She changed clothes 3 times, fixed her hair, realized she was being ridiculous, and left her hair messy. The visiting room had tables and chairs set up like a cafeteria. Other patients sat with family members. Some visits looked happy, others tense. Lucas and Charlie walked in at 2 o'clock. Charlie ran over immediately. "You look different." "Different how?" "Less scary. Dad said you were sick, but you're getting better." "I'm getting better." Charlie pulled something out of his backpack. A drawing. This one was of 3 people. A man, a boy, and a woman with yellow hair. "That's you," Charlie said, pointing to the woman. "And that's me and Dad. We're at the park having a picnic. I wanted to draw something happy so you could look at it when you're sad." Vanessa took the drawing carefully, studied it. Something in her chest cracked open. "This is the nicest thing anyone's ever given me," she said quietly. "Really? It's just a drawing." "It's perfect." Lucas sat down across from her. "You look good." "I look exhausted." "Yeah, but good exhausted, not dying exhausted." Vanessa laughed despite herself. "There's a difference?" "Huge difference." They talked for an hour. Charlie did most of the talking. Lucas filled in details. Vanessa mostly listened. Just being near them felt grounding, real, like a reminder that life existed outside these walls. Before they left, Charlie hugged her, quick and tight. "Get better fast. Dad makes terrible breakfast, and I miss having other people to talk to. I'm working on it." After they left, Vanessa went back to her room and taped Charlie's drawing to the wall above her bed. That night in group therapy, Dr. Grant asked everyone to share one thing they were grateful for. Most people said family, freedom, another chance. When it was Vanessa's turn, she said, "I'm grateful for the janitor who wouldn't let me die alone, and his son who draws pictures of picnics." Dr. Grant smiled. "Tell us about them." So Vanessa did. She told them about Lucas finding her, about him showing up every week to clean her office, about him calling her bluff when she pretended to be fine, about Charlie and pizza and what it felt like to sit at a normal kitchen table with people who didn't want anything from her except her company. "Sounds like you found people who care about you," Denise said. "I don't know why they do. I'm nobody to them. Just someone Lucas happened to find at the right time." "Or the wrong time," Marcus said. "Depending how you look at it." "What do you mean?" "If he hadn't found you, you wouldn't be here. You'd probably still be running your company, still successful, still in control." "Still dying," Vanessa said quietly. "I'd still be dying, just slower. Is this better?" Vanessa thought about that. 3 weeks ago, she would have said no, but now, "Yeah," she said. "This is better. I hate it, but it's better." Week 4 brought different challenges. The physical withdrawal was mostly over. The emotional work got harder. Dr. Reeves made Vanessa write letters to her parents. Letters she'd never send because they were dead. Letters saying all the things she'd never processed. The first letter was angry, blaming them for dying, for leaving her alone, for making her grow up too fast. The second letter was sad, missing them, wishing they could see what she'd built, wishing they'd been there to tell her when to stop. The third letter was honest, admitting she'd used work to avoid feeling their absence, admitting she'd built a company not just for success, but to prove she could survive without them. Writing those letters broke something open in Vanessa. She cried for 3 days, proper crying, the kind that left her exhausted and hollow. But after it passed, she felt lighter. "Grief is like that," Dr. Reeves said during their next session. "It's heavy until you finally let it out. Then there's space for other things." "What other things?" "That's up to you. But you can't fill the space until you make it." Vanessa started doing things she'd never done before. She went to the meditation classes and actually tried. Joined the morning yoga sessions even though she was terrible at it. Started reading books from the facility library just because they looked interesting. Small things, normal things, things that had nothing to do with productivity or success. It felt strange, but also good. In group therapy, she started participating more, offering support to others, listening to their stories without comparing them to her own. Marcus graduated the program during week 4. He gave a speech on his last day about what he'd learned, about humility, about accepting that strength sometimes meant asking for help. "I came here thinking I didn't need this," he said. "I was wrong. I needed this more than anything, and I'm grateful I got caught before it was too late." Everyone clapped. Even the people who'd wanted to punch him during week 1. After Marcus left, Denise said to Vanessa, "You're next. 2 more weeks." "I'm not ready." "Nobody's ready, but you'll be ready enough." Vanessa wasn't sure about that, but she kept going anyway. Lucas visited again during week 5, this time without Charlie. He had a birthday party, Lucas explained. Didn't want to miss it. They sat outside in the gardens. The weather was warm, spring turning into early summer. "How's the company?" Vanessa asked. "I don't know. I'm a janitor, remember? Not exactly in the loop on corporate news." "You could Google it." "I could, but I figured if you wanted to know, you'd ask." Lucas looked at her. "Do you want to know?" But Vanessa thought about that. A month ago, the question would have consumed her. Now, not really, she admitted. "Is that bad?" "No, it's progress. What if I don't want to go back? What if 6 months from now I'm healthy, but I don't want that life anymore?" "Then you build a different life." "That easy?" "I didn't say easy, but possible." Lucas paused. "You know what Charlie said yesterday? He said you're brave." "I'm not brave. I'm here because I screwed up." "You're here because you chose to get help instead of dying. That's brave." "You keep saying that like it's a choice." "I didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice. You could have kept going. Lots of people do. They choose work or drugs or denial over getting help. You chose differently." Vanessa looked at him. This man who worked 2 jobs to support his son, who'd lost his wife but kept going, who showed up for a stranger because he understood what it meant to need someone. "You're a good person, Lucas." "I'm an okay person having a good moment. There's a difference." "No, you're good, and I don't know why you decided to care about me, but I'm glad you did." Lucas smiled. "Someone's got to keep you alive. Might as well be me." They sat in comfortable silence watching other patients and their visitors. Vanessa realized she wasn't jealous of the families anymore, wasn't comparing herself to others. She had her own people now, small but real. "I'm scared to leave," she admitted quietly. "I know. What if I go back to old habits? What if I can't handle real life without falling apart?" "Then you call someone, you ask for help, you come back here if you need to." Lucas looked at her seriously. "Recovery isn't a straight line. It's messy. You'll probably stumble. But stumbling isn't failing, it's just part of the process." "When did you become so wise?" "Grief counseling. Learned a lot about falling down and getting back up." He paused. "Also Charlie. Kids are brutally honest. Teaches you to be honest with yourself." Before Lucas left, Vanessa said, "When I get out, can I take you and Charlie to dinner? A real dinner. My treat." "You don't have to do that." "I want to." "Then, yeah, we'd like that." After he left, Vanessa went to her final individual session with Dr. Reeves. "How are you feeling about leaving?" Dr. Reeves asked. "Terrified." "Good. Fear means you're taking it seriously." Dr. Reeves pulled out a folder. "Let's talk about your aftercare plan." They spent an hour discussing outpatient therapy, support group meetings, triggers to avoid, coping strategies when stress got overwhelming. "The biggest challenge will be work," Dr. Reeves said. "That's where your addiction thrived. High pressure, constant demands, easy access to pills. I don't know if I'm going back." "Have you decided what you want instead?" "No, but I have time to figure it out." "You do. Just remember that not knowing is okay. You don't have to have all the answers immediately." That was new. Vanessa had spent her entire adult life needing answers, plans, control. The idea of not knowing felt wrong, but also freeing. Her last group therapy session came on day 43. Dr. Grant asked her to share what she'd learned. Vanessa thought carefully. Then she said, "I learned that being successful doesn't mean being invincible. I learned that asking for help isn't weakness. And I learned that the people who really matter are the ones who show up when you're at your worst, not your best." "What are you going to do differently going forward?" Dr. Grant asked. "I'm going to be honest, even when it's hard, even when it makes me look weak, because pretending almost killed me, and I'm done pretending." See? Everyone clapped. Denise hugged her. Even the new patients who barely knew her smiled. That night, Vanessa packed her bag for real. Not running away this time. Graduating. She looked at Charlie's drawing on her wall, took it down carefully, folded it, and put it in her bag. Tomorrow, she'd leave this place, walk back into the real world, face whatever came next. She was terrified, but she was also ready. Lucas picked her up at 10 in the morning. Charlie wasn't with him this time. School day. Vanessa stood outside the facility with her single bag, watching his beat-up sedan pull into the circular driveway. The same car that had brought her here 6 weeks ago. It felt like a lifetime. She got in. Lucas didn't ask how she was feeling, didn't make it a big dramatic moment, just pulled out of the driveway and headed toward the city. They drove in silence for 20 minutes before Vanessa said, "I don't know where to go." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I don't want to go back to my penthouse. Not yet. It feels like going back to the place where everything fell apart." Lucas nodded. "You can crash at my place for a few days if you need to. Couch isn't comfortable, but it's available." "I can't do that. You already—" "Vanessa, I'm offering. Take it or don't, but the offer stands." She thought about her empty penthouse, the luxury that had felt like a prison, the silence that had nearly killed her. "Okay," she said quietly, "just for a few days. However long you need." They stopped at her penthouse only long enough for Vanessa to grab clothes and essentials. Walking through those rooms felt surreal. Everything exactly as she'd left it. Spotless, perfect, completely lifeless. She packed quickly and left without looking back. Lucas's apartment felt different this time. Smaller than she remembered, but warmer. Charlie's school projects covered the refrigerator. Dishes sat in the sink. A pile of laundry waited to be folded on the couch. "Sorry about the mess," Lucas said. "It's perfect." He cleared the couch and brought her sheets and a pillow. Bathroom's down the hall. Kitchen's open anytime. Charlie gets home at 3:30, and he's loud. Fair warning, I like loud. Lucas looked at her seriously. "You gonna be okay today? First day out is hard. I have an outpatient session at 4. My therapist from rehab set it up." "Good. You need anything before then?" "Sleep. I didn't sleep much last night." "Yeah, that makes sense." Lucas grabbed his keys. "I've got the day shift at the warehouse. Charlie's at school. You've got the place to yourself until 3:30. Lock up if you leave." After he left, Vanessa stood in the middle of the small living room, completely alone for the first time in 6 weeks. No nurses checking on her, no group therapy schedule, no structured activities, just silence and time and the weight of figuring out what came next. She made it 20 minutes before the panic hit. Her hands started shaking, her chest felt tight, the walls seemed too close. She needed something, anything. Her phone buzzed with notifications she'd been ignoring, emails from the company, messages from her assistant, requests for meetings, the old life pulling her back. Vanessa's fingers hovered over her email app. One click and she'd be back in it. Back to being CEO Vanessa Reed. Back to meetings and decisions and the constant pressure that felt normal because she'd lived it for so long. Instead, she put the phone down, walked to the bathroom, splashed cold water on her face, looked at herself in the mirror. She looked different, thinner, tired, but also somehow more present, like she was actually occupying her own body instead of puppeting it through obligations. "You can do this," she said out loud. Her voice sounded strange in the quiet apartment. "One day. Just get through one day." She went back to the living room, lay down on the couch, forced herself to breathe slowly, counted to 10, then 20, then 30. The panic gradually faded. Vanessa spent the rest of the morning doing nothing. It felt wrong, wasteful, but also necessary. She watched part of a movie on Lucas's TV, made herself lunch from whatever she could find in his kitchen, sat on the small balcony watching people walk by below. Normal things, quiet things, things that had nothing to do with productivity. At 3:30, the door burst open. Charlie ran in carrying his backpack and talking before he even saw her. "Dad, guess what happened at school today? Oh, Vanessa, you're here." He dropped his backpack and ran over. "You got out. Are you all better?" "I'm working on it." "Dad said you were staying with us for a little while. Is that true?" "Just a few days." "That's so cool. You can help me with my homework. I'm terrible at reading comprehension, and Dad always gets frustrated when he tries to help." Lucas walked in behind him. I don't get frustrated. You just don't focus. Because reading is boring. Reading is important. Reading is boring and important. Both things can be true. Charlie turned to Vanessa. Can you help me? Vanessa looked at Lucas. He shrugged. Only if you want to. No pressure. I'd like to help. She spent the next hour sitting at the kitchen table with Charlie going through his reading assignment, a story about a kid who found a lost dog. Charlie struggled with the comprehension questions, but he tried. Vanessa found herself enjoying it. The simplicity of helping an 8-year-old understand a children's story felt grounding. When they finished, Charlie said, "You're a better teacher than Dad." "I heard that," Lucas called from the living room. "I meant it nice." They had dinner together. Spaghetti that Lucas cooked while Vanessa set the table and Charlie talked nonstop about his day. Sitting there felt comfortable, easy, like she belonged. At 6:30, Vanessa left for her outpatient therapy session. The clinic was 30 minutes away, smaller than the rehab facility, more clinical, less comfortable. Her new therapist was a woman named Dr. Amy Castellanos, younger than Dr. Reeves, sharp eyes, direct manner. "So," Dr. Castellanos said, "you just got out today. How's it going?" "I had a panic attack this morning." "What triggered it?" "Being alone, having unstructured time, seeing emails from work." "Did you respond to the emails?" "No?" "Good. That's progress." Dr. Castellanos made a note. "Let's talk about your plan. You're staying with a friend temporarily. What happens after that?" "I don't know. I need to figure out if I'm going back to my company." "What makes you uncertain?" "Everything. The work environment is what destroyed me. High pressure, constant demands, easy access to pills when I needed to push through. If I go back to that, I'm scared I'll fall into the same patterns." "That's a valid concern." Dr. Castellanos leaned forward. "But avoiding work entirely isn't sustainable either. You need purpose, structure. The question is finding the right balance. I don't know what the right balance looks like." "Neither do I. But we'll figure it out together." She paused. "Tell me about this friend you're staying with, the one who drove you home." Vanessa told her about Lucas, about how they'd met, about him refusing to let her die alone, about Charlie and pizza and the strange friendship that had formed from the worst moment of her life. "He sounds important to you," Dr. Castellanos observed. "He is. He and Charlie both." "Why?" Vanessa thought about that. "Because they see me as a person, not as a CEO, not as someone successful or powerful, just as Vanessa. And I've never had that before. That's significant. Hold on to those relationships. You're going to need them." The session ended with homework. Keep a daily journal. Track her triggers. Attend support group meetings twice a week. Call her therapist if she felt like using again. Vanessa drove back to Lucas's apartment feeling slightly less lost. Over the next 3 days, she fell into a strange routine. Wake up on Lucas's couch. Make breakfast. Spend the morning doing nothing productive. Help Charlie with homework when he got home from school. Have dinner together. Attend therapy or support groups in the evenings. It felt small, quiet. Nothing like her old life, but it also felt stable. On the 4th day, her phone rang. Richard Chen. Vanessa stared at the screen. She'd been avoiding calls from the company, but Richard deserved an answer. She picked up. "Hello?" "Vanessa, finally. I've been trying to reach you for days." "I know, I wasn't ready to talk." "Fair enough. How are you?" "Better, still figuring things out." "Good. Listen, I need to talk to you about the company. We have decisions to make. The TechBridge merger is closing next week. The board wants to know your timeline for returning." Barcheti. Vanessa felt her chest tighten. "I don't have a timeline." Silence. Then, "What does that mean?" "It means I don't know if I'm coming back." "Vanessa, you built this company. You can't just walk away." "Why not?" "Because," Richard paused, "because we need you. I've been doing my best, but I'm not you. The investors are asking questions. The staff is nervous. Everyone wants to know when you're coming back. What if I'm not? Then we need to know that, so we can plan accordingly. So the board can make decisions about leadership." His voice softened. "Look, I get it. You've been through hell. But you can't leave us hanging indefinitely. I'm not trying to leave you hanging. I'm trying to stay alive. I know, and I respect that. But at some point, you need to make a choice. After they hung up, Vanessa sat on the balcony staring at nothing. Lucas found her there an hour later. You okay? He asked. Richard called. He wants to know if I'm coming back. What did you tell him? That I don't know. She looked at Lucas. Am I being selfish? The company needs leadership. People's jobs depend on it, and I'm sitting here on your couch avoiding making a decision. Lucas sat down beside her. You're not being selfish. You're being careful. There's a difference. But I built that company. It's my responsibility. No, your responsibility is staying sober. Everything else is secondary. That's easy for you to say. You don't have hundreds of employees depending on you. Lucas was quiet for a moment. Then he said, You're right, I don't. But I had a wife depending on me. And I missed the signs that she was dying because I was too focused on work and bills and keeping everything together. And now she's gone. He looked at Vanessa. Don't make the same mistake I did. Don't sacrifice yourself for something that will replace you the minute you're gone. The company won't replace me. Yes, it will. Maybe not today. Maybe not this year. But eventually someone else will sit in your office and make decisions, and the company will move on. That's how it works. You're replaceable. We all are. The words stung because they were true. So what do I do? Vanessa asked quietly. You take your time. You heal. And when you're ready, you make a decision from a place of strength, not fear. That night, Vanessa couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Richard's call, about the company, about her old office that probably looked completely different now. At 2 a.m, she got up and wrote an email. Short, direct, honest. It said, I'm not ready to return yet. I need more time to focus on my health. Please proceed with the TechBridge merger without me. Richard has full authority to act as CEO. I trust his judgment. I'll be in touch when I'm ready to discuss next steps. She read it 5 times before hitting send. Then she deleted her email app from her phone. The next morning, Lucas found her making breakfast. You look relieved. I sent Richard an email, told him to move forward without me. How'd that feel? Terrifying and right, both at the same time. That's usually how the important decisions feel. Vanessa flipped a pancake. I need to find my own place. I can't stay on your couch forever. Why not? Because you and Charlie need your space, and I need to prove I can live alone without falling apart. You don't have to prove anything. Yes, I do. To myself, if nobody else. Lucas grabbed plates from the cabinet. All right, but you're not moving until you're ready. Actually ready. Not just scared of being a burden. Deal. Charlie stumbled out of his bedroom, rubbing his eyes. Are those pancakes? Yes, Vanessa said. You're the best house guest ever. Can you stay forever? Lucas laughed. She's getting her own place soon, buddy. But I don't want her to leave. She makes good pancakes, and she's nice, and she doesn't get mad when I ask too many questions. Vanessa felt something warm spread through her chest. I'll visit all the time, I promise. Every week? Every week. Okay, then I guess it's fine. Ashkai. They ate breakfast together. Charlie talked about a field trip coming up. Lucas mentioned he'd picked up an extra shift at the warehouse. Vanessa listened and contributed and felt more normal than she had in years. After breakfast, she went to a support group meeting. N.A. Narcotics Anonymous. Held in a church basement downtown. 12 people sitting in a circle talking about their struggles. Vanessa introduced herself. I'm Vanessa. I'm 47 days sober. Everyone said hi. An older man named Robert led the meeting. He'd been sober for 15 years. Talked about how the first 90 days were the hardest. How every day felt like a battle. The thing about recovery, Robert said, is that it's not about never struggling. It's about learning to struggle without using. Learning to sit with discomfort instead of numbing it. After the meeting, a woman approached Vanessa. Maybe 50. Kind face. First meeting? Yeah. How'd it go? Better than I expected. Everyone was nice. That's the thing people don't tell you about recovery. It's full of the most honest, real people you'll ever meet. Because we've all been broken. And we're all trying to put ourselves back together. She held out her hand. I'm Susan. Vanessa. You have a sponsor yet? No, I don't really know how that works. It works like this. You find someone who's been sober longer than you, someone you trust. They help you through the rough patches, hold you accountable. Answer calls at 3 in the morning when you want to use. Susan paused. I'd be happy to sponsor you if you're interested. You don't even know me. I know you showed up. That's enough. Vanessa thought about it. Having someone besides Lucas to call when things got hard sounded necessary. Okay, she said. Yes, I'd like that. They exchanged numbers. Susan gave her a list of upcoming meetings, told her to call anytime, day or night. Walking out of that church basement, Vanessa felt less alone. That evening, she started apartment hunting. Nothing fancy, just something small and affordable, a place where she could rebuild her life without the weight of her old one pressing down. She found a 1-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood she'd never lived in. Middle class, quiet. A 10-minute drive from Lucas's place. It wasn't luxury, wasn't impressive. But standing in the empty living room during the showing, Vanessa felt something she hadn't felt in her penthouse. Peace. She signed the lease the next day. Moving in took less time than she expected. She didn't bring much from her penthouse. Just clothes, books, personal items. Everything else, the expensive furniture, the art, the things she'd bought because they looked successful, she left behind. Lucas and Charlie helped her move. They carried boxes up 3 flights of stairs because the building didn't have an elevator. Charlie complained the entire time, but he kept going. This place is small, Charlie observed, looking around the empty apartment. That's the point, Vanessa said. Why? Because I need to remember what's important, and it's not square footage. Lucas set down the last box. You sure about this place? It's a big change from what you're used to. I'm sure. That night, after Lucas and Charlie left, Vanessa sat alone in her new apartment. No furniture yet, just boxes and possibilities. She ordered a mattress for delivery tomorrow, ate takeout on the floor, watched the sunset through windows that didn't have curtains yet. For the first time in years, she wasn't scared of the silence. Her phone rang. Susan. Just checking in, Susan said. How's your first night in the new place? Good. Quiet. You doing okay? Yeah, I am. That's great. Listen, I'm leading a women's meeting tomorrow at noon if you want to come. Smaller group, easier to share. I'll be there. After they hung up, Vanessa lay on the floor staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow she'd buy furniture, set up her apartment, start building a life that didn't revolve around work or pills or performance. Tonight she just existed, and that was enough. The next few weeks passed in a strange blur. Vanessa furnished her apartment slowly. Second-hand couch, simple bed frame, kitchen table from a discount store. Nothing matched, but it all felt like hers. She attended therapy twice a week, support meetings 4 times a week, spent time with Lucas and Charlie on weekends, started volunteering at a crisis hotline one evening a week, answering calls from people in their darkest moments, giving back in the only way she knew how. The cravings came and went. Some days were easy. Some days she wanted pills so badly her hands shook. On those days she called Susan or Lucas or went to an extra meeting. She learned that recovery wasn't linear. Some days she felt strong. Some days she felt like she was barely holding on. Both were okay. Richard called again 3 weeks after her email. We finalized the TechBridge merger. It went well. Stock price is up. Board is happy. That's great. They're asking about you again. When you're coming back? I don't think I am, Richard. Silence. Then, what? I don't think I'm coming back to the company. Not as CEO. Vanessa, you can't be serious. I am. I've been thinking about it a lot. That job almost killed me. The pressure, the constant demands, the need to be perfect all the time. I can't go back to that. So what are you going to do instead? I don't know yet, but something different. Something that doesn't require me to sacrifice my health for success. Richard sighed. The board isn't going to like this. I know, but it's my decision. What about your shares, your equity? You built this company, Vanessa. You can't just walk away from that. I'm not walking away from my ownership, just from the CEO role. You can keep running it, or the board can hire someone else. But it's not going to be me. After they hung up, Vanessa felt a mix of relief and grief. She'd spent 10 years building that company. It had been her identity. her purpose, everything. Letting it go felt like death and rebirth at the same time. She called Lucas. I just quit my job. How do you feel? Like I just jumped off a cliff and I don't know if there's water below. There's water, you just can't see it yet. How do you know? Because you're still breathing. That means you're still surviving. And if you can survive this, you can survive anything. Vanessa believed him. Not because she was sure he was right, but because believing felt better than drowning in doubt. That night she went to a support group meeting, shared what she'd done, expected judgment or fear or people telling her she was crazy. Instead, they clapped. Robert smiled at her. That took courage. Walking away from something that's killing you always does. After the meeting, Susan pulled her aside. You doing okay? That's a big decision. I'm terrified. Listen. Good. That means it matters. Susan paused. You know what I did when I got sober? I was a lawyer, high-powered firm, made a fortune defending corporations. And I was miserable, drinking myself to death because I hated my life but didn't know how to change it. She smiled. I quit 3 months into sobriety, became a social worker instead, make a fraction of what I used to. But I'm happy, actually happy, for the first time in my adult life. Do you ever regret it? Never. Not once. Susan looked at her seriously. You can't build a new life while holding on to the pieces of the old one. Eventually, you have to let go completely. Trust that something better is waiting. Vanessa wanted to believe that, wanted to trust that walking away from everything she'd built wouldn't leave her with nothing. But trust was hard when you'd spent years learning that the only person you could depend on was yourself. She went home and sat in her small apartment, made tea, wrapped herself in a blanket, tried to imagine what came next. Her phone buzzed. Charlie. He'd learned to text recently and sent her messages constantly. This one said, Dad says you quit your job. Are you okay? Vanessa smiled and typed back, I'm okay. Just trying something new. Charlie. Can you still help me with homework? Vanessa. Always. Charlie. Good, because I have a book report due and it's really hard. Vanessa. I'll help you this weekend. Charlie. Thank you. You're the best. Sitting there reading texts from an 8-year-old who cared if she was okay, Vanessa realized something important. She wasn't alone anymore. She had Lucas and Charlie, Susan and her support group, Dr. Castellanos, Denise from rehab, who still texted her encouragement every few days. She had people who showed up, who cared, who didn't need her to be perfect or successful or anything other than herself. And maybe that was enough to build a new life on. Maybe that was more than enough. 6 months later, Vanessa stood in front of a conference room full of people who looked exactly like she used to. Exhausted, driven, running on fumes and pretending it was strength. The room was packed. 50 chairs, all filled. Another 20 people standing along the walls. They'd come to hear her speak at a recovery conference downtown. The title of her talk, The Price of Success Nobody Talks About. Her hands were shaking. She gripped the podium to steady them. My name is Vanessa Reed, she said. Her voice echoed through the room. And I'm an addict. The words still felt strange, but also true in a way nothing else did. 6 months ago, I was the CEO of a billion-dollar tech company. I was successful, respected, featured in magazines, living the dream everyone told me I should want. She paused. I was also dying, slowly, painfully, and completely alone. The room was silent. People leaned forward. I got addicted to prescription stimulants because I thought I needed them to be good enough, fast enough, perfect enough. I convinced myself that taking pills to work 18-hour days wasn't addiction. It was dedication. Vanessa's throat felt tight. I was wrong, and that lie almost killed me. She told them about the night Lucas found her, about rehab, about walking away from everything she'd built, about learning to live without the performance. The hardest part wasn't getting sober, she said. It was figuring out who I was without the title and the company and the constant achievement, because I'd spent so long being CEO Vanessa that I forgot there was a person underneath. After her speech, people lined up to talk to her, to share their own stories, to ask questions. A young woman in her 20s approached near the end. I'm pre-med, she said quietly. and I take Adderall to get through exams. I tell myself it's temporary, just until I get into medical school. But listening to you, I don't know. Maybe it's not temporary. Vanessa looked at her seriously. If you're using it to function, not just to enhance, that's a problem. Talk to someone before it gets worse. But what if I can't keep up without it? Then you can't keep up, and that's okay. Better to fail honestly than succeed artificially. The woman's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. After everyone left, Vanessa packed up her materials. Susan had driven her to the conference. They walked to the parking lot together. You did good up there, Susan said. I was terrified the entire time. Didn't show. You sounded confident. I'm learning to fake confidence while being honest about everything else. Vanessa smiled. Progress, right? That's exactly what it is. Yeah. They drove back toward Vanessa's apartment. On the way, Susan said, I have something to ask you, and you can say no. Okay. There's a nonprofit starting up, Second Horizon Foundation. They're focused on helping professionals deal with addiction and burnout before it destroys them. They need a director. Someone who understands the pressure, someone who's been through it. Susan glanced at her. I recommended you. Vanessa stared at her. You want me to run a nonprofit? I want you to consider it. No pressure. But I think you'd be good at it. And I think it might give you the purpose you've been looking for. I don't know anything about running a nonprofit. You know how to lead. You know how to build something. And you know what it's like to almost lose everything to addiction. That's more valuable than any nonprofit experience. Vanessa thought about it. A few months ago, the idea would have terrified her. Too much responsibility. Too much risk of falling back into old patterns. But now, can I think about it? Of course. They're not in a rush. Just wanted to put it on your radar. That night, Vanessa sat in her apartment thinking about Susan's offer. She'd spent 6 months figuring out how to live without work consuming her, learning to fill her days with therapy and meetings, and volunteering and time with people who mattered. But she'd been feeling restless lately, like she needed something more. Not the old more, the endless achievement and performance. A different more, something meaningful. She called Lucas. Susan offered me a job. Yeah, doing what? Gitan, running a nonprofit that helps professionals with addiction issues. That sounds perfect for you. Does it? What if I fall back into old habits? What if I start working 18-hour days again and end up right back where I was? Then we'll catch you before you fall. Lucas paused. But I don't think you will. You're different now. How do you know? Because 6 months ago, you wouldn't have called me to talk through this. You would have just made a decision and pushed through alone. The fact that you're asking means you've learned something. Vanessa smiled. When did you become so smart? I've always been smart. You just weren't paying attention. She met with the Second Horizon Foundation board the following week. 3 people, all in recovery themselves, all passionate about creating support systems for high-achieving professionals before they crashed. We've watched too many talented people destroy themselves, the board chair said. Her name was Margaret, early 60s, warm eyes. We want to intervene earlier, provide resources, create a culture where asking for help is seen as strength, not weakness. Why me? Vanessa asked. There are people with more nonprofit experience. Because you're proof it's possible to hit rock bottom and come back, to walk away from success and build something better. That's the message we need. Margaret leaned forward. We're not asking you to work yourself to death. We're asking you to work sustainably, with boundaries, with support. Can you do that? Vanessa thought carefully. I don't know, but I'd like to try. They offered her the position the next day. Part-time to start, 20 hours a week, salary that was laughable compared to what she used to make but enough to live on. Vanessa accepted. Her first day was strange. Small office downtown. 4 employees total, including her. Nothing like the corporate environment she'd left behind. But it felt right. She spent the first month learning, understanding nonprofit operations, meeting with potential donors, designing programs, building partnerships with rehab facilities and therapists and companies willing to support employees struggling with addiction. It was hard work, but different hard. Not the destructive kind that ate her alive. The kind that made her fall asleep tired but satisfied. 3 months in, they launched their first program, a confidential helpline for professionals dealing with substance abuse. Anonymous. Free. Available 24 hours. The response overwhelmed them. In the first week, they received 200 calls. Lawyers, doctors, executives, people who were terrified of being discovered, people who needed help but couldn't risk their reputations. Vanessa trained volunteers, developed protocols, secured funding, built partnerships. She worked hard, but she also went home at 5, attended her therapy appointments, went to meetings, had dinner with Lucas and Charlie every Sunday. Balance. The thing she'd never believed in, the thing that was keeping her alive. One evening, Lucas invited her to Charlie's school play. He was playing a tree in a production about forest animals. Not a big role, but Charlie was excited. Vanessa sat in the elementary school auditorium, surrounded by parents and families. Charlie stood on stage in a brown costume with construction paper leaves taped to his arms. He had 3 lines. Delivered them perfectly, beamed with pride when everyone clapped. After the show, Charlie ran over. "Did you see me?" "You were great," Vanessa said. "I was just a tree." "You were the best tree." "That's what Dad said too. But I think you're both just being nice." Lucas ruffled his hair. "We're being honest. You committed to that tree. Really embodied it." Charlie rolled his eyes, but he was smiling. They went out for ice cream afterward. Sitting in the booth at a cheap diner watching Charlie enthusiastically describe every moment of the play, Vanessa felt something she hadn't felt in years. Contentment. Not happiness exactly. Not the manic high of success. Just quiet satisfaction with being present. "You're staring," Lucas said. "Sorry, I was just thinking." "About what?" "About how a year ago I would have missed this. I would have been in a meeting or working late or taking pills to stay awake for one more presentation. And I would have missed this completely." "Yeah, you would have. Thank you for inviting me. You're part of this now. You don't get to miss the important stuff anymore." Charlie looked up from his ice cream. "Are you and Dad dating?" Lucas choked on his coffee. "Charlie, what?" "I'm just asking. My friend Emily said her mom started dating her teacher, and they're really happy. I thought maybe you and Vanessa could be happy too." Vanessa felt her face heat up. "Charlie, your dad and I are friends. But you like each other, right?" "Of course we like each other. Then why not date? Adults are so weird about this stuff." Lucas cleared his throat. "Vanessa and I have a complicated friendship, buddy. She's been through a lot. We're focusing on that right now. Okay, but if you change your mind, I think it would be cool. I like having her around." Pasitsmshi. After they dropped Charlie off at home and Lucas walked Vanessa to her car, they stood in the parking lot in awkward silence. "Sorry about that," Lucas said finally. "He's 8. He doesn't have a filter. It's fine." "Is it weird now?" Vanessa thought about that. "A little, but also..." She paused. "I've thought about it too, about what this is, about whether it's just friendship or something else." Lucas looked at her seriously. And I don't know. I'm still figuring out how to be a person without addiction. Adding romance feels complicated. It does. But I also know that you're important to me. You and Charlie both. And I don't want to lose that." "You won't lose it." Lucas stepped closer. "Whatever this is, whether it stays friendship or becomes something else, you're stuck with us now. We don't give up on people." Vanessa felt tears building. "I'm not used to people sticking around." "Then get used to it." They stood there for a moment, close enough to cross a line, but not crossing it, both aware of the possibility, but not ready to change what they had. "I should go," Vanessa said finally. "Yeah, okay." She got in her car, drove home, sat in her apartment thinking about Lucas and Charlie and the strange family they'd become. At her next therapy session, Dr. Castellanos asked about relationships. "I'm afraid to want it," Vanessa admitted. "I'm afraid that if I let myself care about someone that way, I'll lose myself again, get consumed, forget about boundaries." "That's a valid fear, but it's also a fear based on your past patterns. You're different now." "Am I? Or am I just temporarily not falling apart? You've been sober for 9 months. You have healthy routines, support systems, self-awareness you didn't have before. That's not temporary. That's change. What if I mess it up? Lucas has been through enough. His wife died. He's raising his son alone. He doesn't need me bringing chaos into his life. Have you asked him what he needs? No. Maybe you should. That weekend, Vanessa invited Lucas over for dinner, just the two of them. Charlie was at a friend's house for a sleepover. She cooked pasta, nothing fancy. They ate at her small kitchen table and talked about work and Charlie and nothing particularly deep. After dinner, they sat on her couch, close but not touching. Can I ask you something? Vanessa said. Sure. What do you want from this? From us? Lucas was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Honestly, I don't know. When I met you, you were dying in your office. I just wanted to help. Then you became someone I cared about, someone who matters. And somewhere along the way, I started wondering if maybe he stopped. If maybe what? If maybe we could be more than friends. But I'm also scared because I lost Sarah, and I know what grief does, and the thought of caring about someone again, of risking that pain, it terrifies me. I'm terrified too, for different reasons, but just as scared. So what do we do? Vanessa thought about that, about all the times she'd pushed through fear with pills and work and performance, about how that had nearly killed her, about how maybe the answer wasn't pushing through. Maybe it was being honest about the fear and moving forward anyway. We try, she said quietly, slowly, with boundaries. And if it doesn't work, we stay friends because that matters more than anything else. Lucas smiled. That sounds reasonable. When did we become reasonable people? I don't think we are. We're just broken people trying not to break each other. That's weirdly romantic. I'm not great at romance. Sarah used to say I had the emotional awareness of a brick. Vanessa laughed. Lucky for you, I'm not great at it either. We can be terrible at it together. Lucas reached over and took her hand. Simple, easy, like they'd done it 1,000 times before. They sat there in comfortable silence. Two people who'd survived their own destruction. Two people figuring out how to build something without breaking themselves in the process. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't some grand romantic gesture. It was just real. And real was enough. Over the next few months, Vanessa and Lucas navigated the strange territory of being more than friends. They went on actual dates. Terrible ones at first because neither of them remembered how dating worked. They argued occasionally, figured out boundaries, learned to communicate without old patterns destroying things. Charlie was thrilled. I told you it would be cool, he said smugly. The Second Horizon Foundation grew. They expanded their helpline, started support groups specifically for professionals, partnered with companies to create workplace wellness programs. Vanessa worked hard but sustainably. She hired more staff, delegated, went home at reasonable hours. Some days were harder than others. Some days she wanted pills so badly her hands shook. On those days she called Susan, went to meetings, reminded herself why she'd walked away. 1 year after leaving rehab, Vanessa spoke at another conference. This time the room was bigger. More people, more stories. After her speech, a woman approached her, mid-50s, well-dressed, exhausted eyes. I'm a surgeon, the woman said quietly, and I'm taking stimulants to get through my shifts. I tell myself it's different because I'm saving lives. But listening to you, I know it's not different. I know I'm destroying myself. Vanessa looked at her with understanding. What do you need? Help. But I can't let anyone at my hospital know. If they find out, I could lose my medical license. We have confidential resources. No one has to know except you. Will you let me connect you with someone? The woman started crying. I'm so tired. I'm so tired of pretending I'm fine. Then stop pretending. Let yourself be human. They sat in the conference hallway and Vanessa made calls, connected the woman with a therapist, a confidential treatment program, resources that wouldn't destroy her career. When the woman left, she hugged Vanessa. Thank you. You just saved my life. No, you saved your own life by asking. Walking to her car later, Vanessa thought about how far she'd come. A year ago, she'd been that woman, desperate, hiding, terrified of being discovered. Now she was helping others find their way out of that darkness. That felt more meaningful than any company valuation or magazine cover ever had. 2 weeks later, Lucas asked her to move in with him. They were having dinner at his apartment. Charlie had already gone to bed. Lucas said it casually, like he was asking her to pass the salt. Move in with us. Vanessa stared at him. What? Your lease is up next month. You're here most nights anyway. Charlie wants you here permanently. I want you here permanently, so move in. That's a big step. I know. But we've been dating for 6 months. And honestly, we were living like a family before we started dating. This just makes it official. What if I mess it up? Then we deal with it. Together. Like we deal with everything else. Lucas reached across the table, took her hand. I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm asking you to be here. That's all. Vanessa thought about her small apartment, the place she'd built her new life. It had been important, a symbol of starting over. But maybe it was time to move forward instead of just starting over. Okay, she said. Yes, I'll move in. Charlie was ecstatic when they told him the next morning. Does this mean you're staying forever? It means I'm staying as long as everyone's happy, Vanessa said. I'm happy. Dad's happy. You're happy, right? I'm happy. Then it's settled. We're officially a family now. Vanessa moved in 3 weeks later. Her stuff fit easily into Lucas's apartment. They rearranged furniture, made space, figured out routines. It wasn't always smooth. They argued about dishes, about boundaries, about how to handle Charlie when he misbehaved. They stumbled through the messy reality of building a life together, but they figured it out. 6 months after moving in, Vanessa got a call from Richard Chen. I have news, he said. The board wants to sell the company. We have an offer. Good one. Enough to make everyone wealthy. But they need your approval since you still own 40%. Vanessa felt her chest tighten. They want to sell? Yes, and honestly, I think we should. The market's right. The company's in good shape. It's a clean exit. What happens to you? I'll probably retire. Take some time off. Figure out what I actually want to do instead of what I fell into. Vanessa understood that completely. How long do I have to decide? 2 weeks. After they hung up, Vanessa sat on the balcony thinking. Selling meant letting go completely. No more ownership. No more connection to the thing she'd built. It also meant freedom, financial security, the ability to focus fully on Second Horizon without worrying about money. She talked it through with Lucas, with Susan, with Dr. Castellanos. Everyone said the same thing. It was her choice. Either decision was valid. In the end, Vanessa called Richard back and said yes. They finalized the sale 6 weeks later. Vanessa signed papers in a conference room surrounded by lawyers. When it was done, she walked out of that building for the last time. She felt lighter, like she'd been carrying something heavy for years and finally set it down. That night, she, Lucas, and Charlie celebrated with pizza and terrible movies. Nothing fancy, nothing corporate, just family. 1 year later, Vanessa stood on a small stage at a fundraising gala for Second Horizon Foundation. The organization had grown beyond what she'd imagined. They'd helped over 3,000 people, saved countless lives, created real change. Lucas and Charlie sat at a table near the front. Charlie was wearing a suit he hated. He kept fidgeting with his tie. Lucas kept telling him to sit still. Vanessa smiled watching them. She gave a short speech, thanked the donors, shared success stories, talked about the importance of catching people before they fell too far. When she finished, people clapped. But what mattered most was Charlie giving her a thumbs up and Lucas smiling like he was proud. After the gala, they went home, changed into comfortable clothes, sat on the couch watching Charlie play video games. You did good tonight, Lucas said quietly. Thanks. I'm still not great at fundraising speeches. You're better than you think. That's what everyone keeps telling me. Vanessa leaned against him. Can I ask you something? Always. Do you ever regret it, getting involved with me? Your life was simpler before. Lucas laughed. My life was not simpler. It was lonely and hard, and I was drowning in grief while pretending I was fine. He turned to look at her. You didn't make my life complicated. You made it full. There's a difference. Even when I'm difficult, especially when you're difficult, means you're human. Charlie looked over from his game. Are you guys being gross and romantic again? No, Lucas said. You are. I can tell. You have that look. What look? The look you get when you forget I'm in the room. Charlie grinned. It's okay. I think it's nice, even if it's also kind of gross. Vanessa laughed. This kid who'd lost his mother but kept finding joy. who'd accepted her into his life without hesitation, who reminded her daily that family wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up. Later that night, after Charlie went to bed, Vanessa stood on the balcony looking at the city lights. Lucas joined her. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah, I was just thinking about how different everything is from 2 years ago. I was dying in an office building, alone, convinced that success was the only thing that mattered." She paused. "And now I'm here, sober, doing work that matters, living with people who actually see me. It's strange how life works out. Strange is one word for it." "What word would you use?" "Us." Lucas thought about that. "Earned. You earned this. Every hard day in rehab, every meeting you went to, every time you chose honesty over performance. You built this life deliberately. We built it. I couldn't have done it alone. Nobody can. That's the point people keep missing. We're not supposed to survive alone. We're supposed to help each other." Vanessa turned to face him. "I love you. I don't think I've said that yet, but I do." Lucas smiled. "I know. You show it every day. But hearing it is nice too." He pulled her close. "I love you too, and so does Charlie. You're stuck with us." "Good. I don't want to be unstuck." They stood there holding each other, two broken people who'd found a way to heal without losing themselves. Two people who'd learned that strength wasn't about never falling. It was about getting back up and asking for help when you needed it. The city hummed below them, full of people fighting their own battles, hiding their own struggles, pretending to be fine when they were falling apart. Vanessa thought about the woman at the conference, the surgeon who'd finally asked for help. She thought about all the calls that came into Second Horizon's helpline, all the people who were learning that asking for help wasn't weakness. She thought about how close she'd come to not surviving, how easily she could have become another statistic, another talented person destroyed by the pressure to be perfect. But she didn't die. She fell apart and rebuilt herself differently, stronger in ways that mattered, softer in ways that helped. And that made all the difference. The truth is, we spend so much time performing success that we forget to live. We push through pain, medicate exhaustion, hide our struggles behind achievements, and we call it strength. But real strength is admitting when you're drowning. It's asking for help before you go under completely. It's choosing healing over image even when it costs everything. Vanessa learned that the hard way. In a penthouse bathroom at 3 a.m, in a rehab facility where she had to face herself without the performance, in the small apartment where she learned to live without needing to be extraordinary. She learned that the people who save us aren't the ones with all the answers. They're the ones who show up when we're at our worst and refuse to leave. They're the janitors who stay all night, the sponsors who answer calls at 3 a.m., the 8-year-olds who draw pictures of picnics. They're the messy, imperfect humans who remind us that we don't have to survive alone. Standing on that balcony with Lucas, Vanessa understood something she'd spent years running from. Vulnerability wasn't weakness. Connection wasn't distraction. And building a life worth living meant accepting that some things mattered more than success. Things like waking up sober, like being present for the people you love, like doing work that helps instead of destroys, like learning to fall apart without losing yourself completely. Those things didn't look impressive on paper. They wouldn't impress investors or make magazine covers, but they were real in ways nothing else had been, and real was what kept you alive. Vanessa had been chasing the wrong thing for so long. She'd thought success would fill the emptiness, that achievement would prove she was enough, that if she just worked harder, pushed further, reached higher, eventually she'd feel whole. But wholeness didn't come from external validation. It came from internal acceptance, from showing up as yourself, flaws and fears included, from building relationships based on honesty instead of performance. It came from letting people see you, actually see you, and discovering they didn't run. 2 years after Lucas found her dying in her office, Vanessa stood in that same building for a speaking engagement. She walked past her old office. Someone else sat at her desk now. The walls were painted differently. Everything looked changed. She felt nothing but gratitude. That life had almost killed her. This life was keeping her alive. And that was the only success story that mattered anymore.